Amber Washington thought the worst part of her day was the rain. She had no idea that climbing into the wrong car would destroy everything she believed about her life. The storm hit JFK like divine punishment, turning the pickup zone into pure chaos. Amber's phone was dead, of course it was, and her charger was buried somewhere in her checked luggage. She'd been standing in the downpour for 20 minutes, watching rideshare after rideshare pass her by when she saw it. A sleek black Mercedes with a placard in the window that read "Park." She squinted through the rain. Her pickup location was near the Park Avenue exit. Close enough. "Thank God," she muttered, yanking open the back door and throwing herself inside. Her suitcase went into the trunk before the driver could protest. She heard it click locked, which meant she was committed now. The leather seats were heaven against her soaked clothes. She collapsed backward, water dripping from her braids onto pristine upholstery. "I am so sorry," she gasped. "That rain is biblical. I thought I was going to drown out there. You're a lifesaver, seriously." Silence. Then a voice, cold as winter. "Get out of my car." Amber's eyes snapped open. The man in the driver's seat wasn't a driver at all. He was young, late 20s maybe, with sharp features and sharper eyes that were currently looking at her like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. His suit probably cost more than her entire semester's tuition. What? I said, get out." His voice had an edge that could cut glass. "This isn't your car." Amber's stomach dropped. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I thought the sign said park and my pickup." "I don't care what you thought." He turned fully now, and Amber saw the suspicion hardening his features. "Did someone send you?" "What? No, it was an honest mistake." "Right, an honest mistake that just happened to land you in my car specifically." His laugh was bitter. "How much is my father paying you?" Heat flooded Amber's face, embarrassment mixing with anger. "Excuse me? I don't even know who you are." "Sure you don't." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling security." "My luggage is in your trunk." "Then you should have thought of that before you executed whatever scheme this is." Amber stared at him, water still dripping down her face, her Howard hoodie clinging to her skin, and felt something inside her snap. She'd flown from Baltimore to New York for a cultural exchange program at Cornell. She'd left her family, her friends, her entire life for this opportunity. And this arrogant... "You know what?" She leaned forward, meeting his cold gaze with fire. "Call security. I'll wait. And while we're waiting, I'll tell them about how you accused a soaking wet graduate student of being some kind of con artist because I made an honest mistake. I'm sure that'll look great for you." His jaw tightened. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Amber saw something flash across his face. Frustration, maybe. Fear. The text was visible for just a second. "If you're not engaged by the shareholders meeting next month, I'm giving the company to your cousin. This is your last chance." He stared at that message for a long moment, then at Amber, then back at the message. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. "Why do you want to know?" "Just answer the question." "Amber. Amber Washington." "You're a student?" "Graduate student. Cornell Hospitality Management Program. Not that it's any of your business." He studied her like she was an equation he was trying to solve. "And you need money." It wasn't a question, but Amber bristled anyway. "I need my luggage out of your trunk so I can get out of your life." "What if I offered you $10,000? Amber blinked. "What?" $10,000, 1 week of your time. You pretend to be my girlfriend, convince my father you're completely wrong for me, and then we part ways. You get paid, I get my father off my back. Everyone wins." "You're insane." "I'm desperate." His voice dropped, and for the first time you heard something human underneath the ice. "My father is forcing me into an arranged marriage. If I show up with a girlfriend, especially one he'll hate, it buys me time to figure out my next move." "So you want to hire me to be your fake girlfriend? That's your solution? Do you have a better one?" Amber should have said no. Should have demanded her luggage and walked away. But she thought about her student loans. About her parents back in Baltimore, her dad still working double shifts at the post office, her mom's nursing schedule that left her exhausted every night, about the internship she couldn't afford to take because it was unpaid. Before she could think better of it, she heard herself say, $15,000. His eyebrows rose. "What?" "You heard me. If I'm going to be your fake girlfriend and deal with your family drama, it's going to cost you $15,000. Take it or leave it." A smile ghosted across his lips, the first real expression she'd seen from him. "You're either very smart or very stupid. I'm practical, and if your father is as bad as you're implying, I'm going to earn every penny." She crossed her arms. "So, do we have a deal?" He extended his hand. "June Park. And yes, we have a deal." His grip was firm, his hand warm despite his cold demeanor. Amber shook it, trying to ignore the way her pulse jumped at the contact. "1 week," she said firmly. "Then I never want to see you again." "Trust me," June replied, his voice returning to ice. "The feeling is mutual." As the driver finally returned and they pulled away from the airport of New York City, Amber stared out at the rain-slicked streets and wondered what she'd just agreed to. She'd come to this city to study hospitality management, to build a career, to make something of herself. She hadn't planned on becoming entangled with a billionaire heir who looked at her like she was both his salvation and his worst enemy. But $15,000 was $15,000. She could survive 1 week. She'd dealt with difficult people before. How bad could it possibly be? If Amber had known what that 1 week would cost her, not in money, but in everything she thought she knew about herself, she might have walked into that rain and never looked back. But she didn't know. Not yet. So she sat back in the leather seats of June Park's Mercedes and let him drive her toward a future she couldn't possibly imagine. If you're already hooked by Amber's terrible decision, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to get so much messier. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Jun's apartment was in Tribeca, which Amber only knew because she'd studied New York neighborhoods for her program. What she hadn't studied was how to handle stepping into a space that probably cost more per month than her parents made in a year. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive minimalism. Everything was white or black or chrome, like a magazine spread that nobody actually lived in. "Your luggage is in the guest room," Jun said, not looking at her. He was already on his phone, typing rapidly. "First family dinner is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Dress formally." "I'm a grad student, not a socialite. My formal wear is a dress from Target." He glanced up, his expression unreadable. "There's a closet in your room. My assistant had some options sent over." "Your assistant works fast." "I pay her to." He returned to his phone. "The story is we met 3 months ago at a hotel industry conference. You were presenting on cultural integration in luxury hospitality. I was impressed. We started dating quietly because you didn't want the attention." "Wow, you've really thought this through." "I don't do anything halfway, Miss Washington." "It's Amber. If I'm going to be your fake girlfriend, you should probably use my first name." His jaw tightened slightly. "Fine, Amber, and you can call me Jun." "Jun," she tested the name. "Okay, so what's the actual plan here? I show up, act inappropriate, and your father decides I'm not daughter-in-law material?" "No." Jun set his phone down, finally giving him his full attention. "You show up and be yourself. That should be sufficient." The insult landed like a slap. Amber felt her temper flare. "Excuse me?" "My father expects sophistication, breeding, someone from the right family with the right connections who knows how to navigate his world." Jun's voice was clinical, detached. "You're a graduate student from Baltimore. You'll stand out exactly the way I need you to." "So I'm the wrong kind of person, that's what you're saying." "I'm saying you're different. My father values tradition. You represent everything he doesn't understand." Amber should have been offended. She was offended, but underneath the anger was something else, a recognition. Jun wasn't being cruel, he was being honest, and there was a weariness in his voice that suggested he was as tired of his father's expectations as she was of being underestimated. "Fine," said Amber coldly, "I'll be myself. But if your father is as bad as you're implying, don't expect me to just smile and take whatever he dishes out." Something flickered in Jun's eyes. "I wouldn't dream of it."
The guest room was obscenely luxurious. Amber found the closet Jun had mentioned and opened it to find a dozen dresses, all in her size. She pulled out a black cocktail dress, simple but elegant, and held it up to the light. How did he know her size? Had he guessed? Had his assistant somehow figured it out? The thought made her uncomfortable. She barely knew this man, and yet she was standing in his apartment, holding clothes he'd bought for her, preparing to lie to his family. Her phone, now charged, buzzed with a text from her mom. "Did you land safe, baby? How's New York?" Amber stared at the message. How was she supposed to answer that? She landed safe, sure, but she'd also accidentally climbed into a billionaire's car and agreed to fake date him for money. Somehow she didn't think that would go over well. "All good, Mama. The program starts tomorrow. Love you." She hit send before she could overthink it. Lying to her mother felt wrong, but what was she supposed to say? The truth was too complicated, too bizarre. That night, Amber lay in the guest bed, which was more comfortable than any bed she'd ever slept in, and stared at the ceiling. Through the windows, she could see the city lights reflecting off the river, could hear the distant sounds of traffic. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong here. But $15,000, that was real. That could change things.
She just had to survive 1 week. The next morning, Amber woke to find June already gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter in sharp, precise handwriting. "Meeting at the hotel at 6 p.m. Driver will pick you up at 5:30. Don't be late." No good morning, no hope you slept well, just orders. Amber crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. She spent the day exploring the neighborhood, trying to orient herself in this strange new version of her life. She grabbed coffee from a corner shop where the barista barely looked at her, walked along the river, watched people rushing to wherever important people rushed to. Everyone looked purposeful, like they belonged. At 5:30 exactly, a black car pulled up outside June's building. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, opened the door for her. "Ms. Washington? I'm Henry. Mr. Park asked me to drive you to the hotel." At least someone in June's orbit had manners. The Park Hotel was in Midtown, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Henry led her through a private entrance, up an elevator that required a key card, and into a penthouse suite that made June's apartment look modest. June was waiting, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car back home. He looked her over once, clinically, and nodded. "That dress works. Remember, we met at a conference. We've been dating for 3 months. You're passionate about hospitality and cultural integration. Keep it simple." "Got it. I'm the unsophisticated American girlfriend. You've made that very clear." "I didn't say unsophisticated. I said different." "Right, different." Amber straightened her shoulders. "Anything else I should know about your father? Does he bite?" "Only if he senses weakness." June checked his watch. "He'll be here in 10 minutes. His name is Chairman Park. Address him as such unless he tells you otherwise. Don't interrupt him when he's speaking. Don't be myself, you mean. I thought that was the whole point." June's expression hardened. "The point is to make him believe we're together while also making him doubt you're suitable for this family. There's a difference between being yourself and being disrespectful." "I know how to behave at a formal dinner, June. I'm not a child." "I never said you were, but you're treating me like one." They stared at each other, tension crackling between them. Amber saw frustration in June's eyes, but also something else. Anxiety, maybe. Fear. This dinner mattered to him, even if he was pretending it didn't. The door opened before she could say anything else. A woman in her 60s entered, wearing a traditional hanbok and carrying a small bag. Her eyes went immediately to Amber, warm and curious. "Oh, you must be June's friend. I'm Mrs. Song. I manage the hotel kitchens." She smiled, genuinely delighted. "June didn't tell me you were so beautiful." "I didn't tell you anything, Mrs. Song, because this is a private dinner." "Private dinner, yes. I just came to bring the tea service Chairman Park requested. You know how particular he is about his tea." Mrs. Song looked up suddenly, catching Amber staring. For a moment, their eyes met. Something flickered across the older woman's face. Recognition? Impossible. They'd never met before.
"The chairman is here," Mrs. Song said quietly, breaking the moment. "I'll leave you to your dinner." She left quickly, but not before glancing back at Amber one more time, her expression troubled. "Are you ready?" June asked. Amber tore her gaze from the door. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Then let's get this over with." The door opened again. This time, the man who entered commanded the entire room without saying a word. Chairman Park was tall, silver-haired, and looked like he'd never smiled in his entire life. His eyes swept over Amber with the same clinical assessment a jeweler might give a questionable diamond. "Father," June said, "this is Amber Washington. Amber, my father, Chairman Park." "Chairman Park." Amber extended her hand, keeping her voice steady despite the way her heart was hammering. "It's an honor to meet you." He looked at her hand for a long moment before shaking it. His grip was firm, testing. "Ms. Washington, June tells me you study hospitality management?" "Yes, sir, at Cornell." "Cornell?" He released her hand. "And you met my son at a conference." It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. He was already testing her, looking for cracks in the story. Amber smiled, channeling every ounce of confidence she didn't feel. "I was presenting on cultural integration in luxury hotels." June asked some very insightful questions afterward. "We got coffee, and here we are." "Here we are," Chairman Park repeated, his tone suggesting he found that extremely unlikely. This was going to be a very long dinner.
Dinner was a minefield disguised as a meal. They sat at a table that could have seated 12, just the three of them spread out like strangers in a waiting room. The food kept coming, course after course of beautiful, intimidating dishes that Amber had to pretend she knew how to eat properly. She watched June from the corner of her eye, mimicking his movements with the chopsticks, the way he placed his napkin, the precise angles at which he held his water glass. Chairman Park watched her the entire time. "Your parents, Miss Washington, what do they do?" Amber set down her chopsticks carefully. "My father works for the Postal Service. My mother is a nurse." "I see. Working class." The dismissal in his voice was surgical, clean, efficient. "Hard working class," Amber corrected, meeting his gaze. "My father has worked for the USPS for 26 years. My mother works night shifts at Johns Hopkins. They put me through Howard on a combination of scholarships and sacrifice." "Howard University." Chairman Park's expression didn't change. "And now Cornell. Quite a trajectory." "I work hard. I earn what I achieve." "Admirable." He turned to June. "And how long did you say you've been seeing each other?" 3 months, June said smoothly. "We kept it quiet. Amber didn't want the attention that comes with my family." "How prudent of her." Chairman Park's eyes never left Amber's face. "Tell me, Miss Washington, what do you know about the hotel industry?" This, at least, Amber could answer honestly. "I know that luxury hospitality is changing. Travelers want authenticity now, not just opulence. They want to feel connected to the culture they're visiting, not insulated from it. The hotels that will succeed in the next decade are the ones that can balance luxury with genuine cultural integration." For the first time, something shifted in Chairman Park's expression. Not approval exactly, but interest. "You have opinions. I have a degree and research to back them up, sir." "And you think Park Hotels should pursue this cultural integration?" It was a trap. Amber could feel it. Criticize his hotels and she'd insult him. Praise them blindly and he'd know she was lying. "I think Park Hotels have an incredible foundation. Your Tribeca location's use of Korean architectural elements was brilliant. But there's room to go deeper. Not just aesthetic choices, but programming, partnerships with local artists, culinary experiences that tell stories, not just serve food." Chairman Park set down his chopsticks. "You've studied our hotels. I study all luxury hotel chains. It's my field. And you believe you could improve what 3 generations of Parks have built? I believe every business can improve. That's not an insult, it's reality." Silence stretched across the table like ice cracking. June was absolutely still, his face carefully blank. Amber's heart pounded, but she kept her chin up, refusing to look away from Chairman Park's penetrating stare. Then he laughed. It was short, sharp, and completely unexpected. "You have spine, Miss Washington. I'll give you that." He turned to June. "She's not what I expected." "I told you she wasn't," June said quietly. "No, you told me you were dating someone. You didn't tell me she had a brain in her head." Chairman Park stood, signaling the end of the meal. "Miss Washington, it was interesting to meet you. I look forward to seeing you at the shareholders' gala next week." "The gala?" June's voice had an edge Amber hadn't heard before. "Father, I never agreed. You're bringing your girlfriend to meet the family. Surely you want the shareholders to meet her as well." It wasn't a request. "Unless this relationship isn't as serious as you implied." Amber watched June's jaw tighten, saw the muscle jump in his cheek. He was trapped, and they both knew it. "Of course I'll bring her," June said flatly. "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send the details." He nodded once to Amber. "Good evening." He left, and the room felt like it exhaled. June immediately stood, walking to the windows, his back rigid. Amber waited, unsure if she should speak or give him space. "That wasn't supposed to happen," he said finally, his voice tight. "The gala. That wasn't part of the plan." "What happens at the gala?" 700 people. Press, business partners, everyone who matters in my father's world. He turned, and Amber saw something raw in his expression. "He's testing us. If we show up together, he's going to make it very public. And if we fail, if anyone suspects this isn't real, he'll know. Then we don't fail." June laughed bitterly. "You don't understand. These people are vultures. They'll pick apart everything about you, where you're from, how you dress, the way you speak. They'll smell the lie. Then we make it believable." Amber stood, anger overriding her nerves. "You hired me to do a job. I'm doing it. Your father just told me I have a brain in my head, which apparently is more than you thought when you dragged me into this." "I never said—" "You didn't have to. Every word out of your mouth since I got in your car has been about how different I am, how I don't fit, how I'm exactly wrong for your world. Well, guess what? I survived that dinner. I impressed your father despite you expecting me to fail. So maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you." She headed for the door, fury propelling her forward. "Wait." June's voice stopped her. Amber turned slowly. June was still by the windows, but his shoulders had dropped slightly. He looked exhausted. "I've been an ass. Since the airport, since you got in my car. I've been treating you like you're part of the problem when you're just someone who made a mistake and got pulled into my mess." "Pulled? I agreed to this, for the money." "Because you needed it, and I'm exploiting that." He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect styling. "My father does this to me. He makes me suspicious of everyone, makes me think every woman who talks to me wants something, and I took that out on you." I wanted to stay angry. It was easier than acknowledging the vulnerability in his voice. "Your father is intimidating, but he's not wrong about everything. You did ask insightful questions after my presentation." June blinked. "What?" "At the fake conference, where we fake met, you would have asked good questions. You actually know the industry." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Are you trying to make me feel better?" "I'm trying to make this bearable. We have a gala to survive now, apparently, which means we need to stop acting like enemies and start acting like a couple." "I don't know if I remember how to do that." "Act like a couple?" "Trust someone enough to let them in." The honesty in that statement hung between them. Amber saw past the ice, past the designer suit and the cold demeanor, and glimpsed something she recognized. Loneliness. The kind that came from building walls so high you forgot how to tear them down. "Well," she said, her voice softer, "lucky for you, I'm great at breaking and entering." June actually smiled, a real one this time. "That's concerning on multiple levels." "Get used to it. You hired me for a week, remember? You're stuck with me." "About that." John pulled out his phone.
The gala changes things. It's not just one dinner anymore. It's a whole public performance. I'll pay you $30,000 instead of $15,000. $30,000? Amber's head spun. John, that's fair. It's fair for what I'm asking you to do. He met her eyes. But I need to know you're in, all the way in. Because if we do this, there's no backing out. Amber thought about her student loans, her parents, the internship she couldn't take. $30,000 was life-changing money. But looking at John, at the exhaustion and hope warring in his expression, she realized this wasn't just about money anymore. Something had shifted during that dinner. Some barrier had cracked. I'm in, she said, all the way in. Then we start tomorrow. We need to make this convincing. What did you have in mind? We spend time together, real time, learn about each other, build a foundation that will hold up under scrutiny. He hesitated. And we need to look like we actually enjoy each other's company. Revolutionary concept. I'm serious, Amber. At the gala, people will be watching every interaction, every glance, every touch. We need to be comfortable with each other. The word touch sent an unexpected shiver down Amber's spine. She pushed it aside. This was business. That's all it was. Fine. Tomorrow. We'll play couple. She headed for the door again, then paused. And John, for what it's worth, you're not as terrible as you think you are. She left before he could respond, but she felt his eyes on her back the entire way to the elevator. In the car ride back to John's apartment, Amber stared out at the glittering city and wondered what she'd just agreed to. $30,000, a public performance, time spent with a man who was equal parts infuriating and intriguing. When she got back to the guest room, Mrs. Song was waiting in the hallway, her expression troubled. Miss Washington, may I speak with you? It's important. Something in her voice made Amber's stomach clench. Of course. Is something wrong? Mrs. Song glanced around, then lowered her voice. That birthmark on your shoulder. I saw it when your dress shifted at dinner. The crescent moon. Amber's hand instinctively went to her shoulder blade where the mark had been since birth. How did you... 20 years ago, I was a nurse at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Mrs. Song's voice shook. There was a baby taken from the hospital nursery. A baby girl. The police report included identifying marks. A crescent moon-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder blade. The hallway tilted. Amber grabbed the wall for support. What are you saying? I'm saying, Mrs. Song whispered, that I think you might be that baby.
Amber couldn't breathe. The hallway felt like it was closing in, the expensive wallpaper pressing against her skull. Mrs. Song's words echoed in her head, nonsensical, impossible. That's insane, Amber managed. You're talking about a kidnapping. My parents, I have birth certificates, photos, everything. Do you have hospital records? Mrs. Song's voice was gentle but insistent. From Johns Hopkins. From the day you were born. Amber opened her mouth, closed it. She'd never seen hospital records. Her parents had always been vague about her birth, said the records were lost in a move, that it didn't matter because she was theirs and they loved her. Oh, God. I need to sit down. Mrs. Song guided her into the guest room, sat beside her on the bed. The older woman's hands were shaking as much as Amber's. I could be wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But that case haunted me for years. The mother, Leslie Morrison, she was a resident at Hopkins. Young, brilliant, alone. She had the baby by herself, and someone took that child right from the nursery. Tears welled in Mrs. Song's eyes. I was on shift that night. I held that baby. I documented her birthmark because she was so beautiful, so perfect, and then she was gone. Why didn't you say something? To the police? I did, but the case went cold. No leads, no witnesses. The baby just vanished. Mrs. Song pulled out her phone with trembling hands, pulled up a news article from 20 years ago. This is Leslie Morrison. This is the mother. Amber stared at the photo. A young black woman, maybe 27, her face destroyed by grief. High cheekbones, wide eyes, a distinctive gap between her front teeth. The same gap Amber saw in the mirror every morning.
No. No, this isn't. My parents love me. They raised me. They're my family. I believe they love you, Mrs. Song said softly, but love and truth aren't always the same thing. Amber's phone felt like lead in her hands as she pulled it out. Her mother's contact photo smiled at her. Patricia Washington, gap-toothed and warm, the woman who'd braided Amber's hair every Sunday, who'd worked night shifts to pay for piano lessons Amber never stuck with, who cried at her Howard graduation. The woman who might have bought her. I need to call them, Amber said, her voice breaking. I can't. Not tonight. Mrs. Song took the phone gently from her hands. Tonight, you process. Tomorrow, you decide what to do. But Amber, she cupped Amber's face, her expression fierce with compassion. Whatever the truth is, you survived it. You're here. You're strong. That doesn't change. After Mrs. Song left, Amber sat in the dark, staring at nothing. Her mind kept circling back to moments she'd never questioned. The way her parents always changed the subject when she asked about her birth, the lack of baby photos before 6 months old, the time she'd wanted to get a passport for a school trip and her mother had been so stressed about finding documents, almost frantic, the way her father sometimes looked at her with an expression she'd always read as love, but now recognized as guilt. Her phone buzzed. A text from June. You okay? Henry said Mrs. Song wanted to talk to you. Amber stared at the message. She should tell him. She was living in his apartment, tangled in his life, but the words wouldn't come. How did you tell someone that your entire existence might be a lie? Instead, she typed, Fine, tired. See you tomorrow. She didn't sleep. By the time sunrise painted the windows gold, she'd made a decision. She needed to know the truth, and she needed to hear it from the people who'd raised her. At 7 a.m., she called home. Her father answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. Amber? Baby, it's early. You okay? Daddy. Her voice cracked on the word. I need you to tell me the truth about something. Silence. Long enough that she knew. What hospital was I born in? Amber, why are you... What hospital, Daddy? More silence. Then quietly. Put your mother on the phone. David, what's wrong? Her mother's voice, sleepy and concerned, then sharper. Amber, baby, what happened? Mama, I need you to tell me the truth. Please. Was I adopted? The sound her mother made was answer enough. A sob, caught and strangled. How did you... her mother whispered. Who told you? Amber's world tilted sideways. Part of her had hoped Mrs. Song was wrong, that this was all some terrible coincidence. But her mother's reaction confirmed everything. So it's true. You bought me. No, Amber, no, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Amber was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. Tell me, what was it like when you paid someone for a stolen baby? We didn't know. Her father's voice now, urgent and desperate. Amber, baby, we didn't know she was stolen. There was an adoption facilitator. Everything seemed legitimate. Seemed legitimate? How much did you pay? $30,000. Her mother was crying openly now. We'd tried for so long. I had 7 miscarriages, 7 babies I couldn't keep. And then this woman said she could help us, that there was a private adoption, a mother who couldn't keep her baby. Her name was Leslie Morrison, Amber said coldly, and someone took her baby from Johns Hopkins Hospital. That baby was me. The silence on the other end was absolute. Oh God, her father breathed. Oh God, Amber, we didn't know. I swear to you, we didn't know. When did you figure it out? Years later, you were maybe 7 or 8. We saw a news special about cold case kidnappings, and there was a mention of the Hopkins case, and her mother's voice broke. We recognized some details. The date, the location. We were so scared. We thought if we said something, they'd take you away. You were ours. You were our daughter. We couldn't lose you. So you just kept lying to me. Amber's voice was raw. For my whole life, you let me believe I was yours when someone else was out there mourning me. We are yours, her mother sobbed. We raised you. We loved you. That counts for something. Does it? Does it count when it's built on someone else's tragedy? Amber, please. I need time. Don't call me, don't text me. I need to think. She hung up before they could respond, before her resolve could crumble. Then she sat on the floor of Jun's guest room and let herself fall apart. That's where Jun found her 20 minutes later. She didn't hear him come in, didn't register his presence until he was sitting beside her on the floor, silent and solid. "Mrs. Song told me," he said quietly. "She was worried about you."
Amber laughed bitterly. Worried about me? My entire life is a lie. My parents bought me. There's a woman out there who spent 20 years thinking her baby was dead or worse, and I'm supposed to just, what, keep going? Pretend this is fine? No. You're supposed to let yourself break, and then figure out what comes next. What if I don't want to figure it out? What if I want to get on the plane back to Baltimore and pretend Mrs. Song never said anything? You could do that. Jun's voice was matter-of-fact. But you won't, because that's not who you are. You don't know who I am. I don't even know who I am. I know you walked into a stranger's car and turned a mistake into an opportunity. I know you faced down my father without flinching. I know you called your parents at 7 in the morning because waiting would have destroyed you. He shifted slightly so he could see her face. You're brave, Amber. Brave enough to want the truth even when it hurts. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm drowning. Then let me throw you a lifeline. John pulled out his phone. Mrs. Song found Leslie Morrison. She's a pediatric surgeon in Boston. She never stopped looking for you, and she wants to talk to you if you're ready. Amber stared at the phone number on the screen. 10 digits that would connect her to a woman she didn't remember, who'd spent 20 years grieving a baby that was sitting on a floor in Tribeca, falling apart. What if she hates me? Amber whispered. What if she looks at me and only sees what she lost? What if she looks at you and sees what she found? The kindness in Jun's voice broke something open in Amber's chest. She'd been so focused on his coldness, his walls, that she hadn't noticed when they'd started coming down. Hadn't noticed that somewhere between the airport and this moment, he'd stopped being the enemy and become something else. I can't do this alone, she admitted. You're not alone. Jun stood, offered his hand. Come on, let's get you cleaned up, then we'll figure this out together. Why are you helping me? This isn't part of our deal. Maybe I'm tired of only doing things that are part of deals. He pulled her to her feet. Maybe I'm trying to be a better person than my father raised me to be. Or maybe, he hesitated, something vulnerable crossing his face. Maybe I care about what happens to you. Before Amber could process that statement, Jun's phone rang. He glanced at it and cursed. My father. He wants to meet for lunch, both of us. Jun, I can't. I'll tell him you're sick. It's fine. No, Amber straightened, wiping her face. If I start hiding now, I'll never stop. I can do this. I can pretend for a few more hours. You're not pretending to be okay, Amber. Not with me. I'm not pretending to be okay. I'm pretending I'm about to shatter into 1,000 pieces. She managed a weak smile. There's a difference. John looked at her for a long moment, and Amber saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. Admiration, concern, and something else she couldn't quite name. For what it's worth, I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. You clearly haven't met many people. I've met hundreds, thousands. None of them hold a candle to you. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to acknowledge. Then John's phone rang again, shattering the tension. We should go. But Amber, after lunch, we're calling Leslie Morrison, together. I'm not letting you face that alone. As they left for the restaurant, Amber realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt oddly comforting. This fake relationship was starting to feel dangerously real. Lunch with Chairman Park was torture. Amber sat across from June's father, pushing food around her plate, trying to focus on the conversation while her mind screamed with everything she'd learned that morning. Every time Chairman Park asked her a question, she had to pull herself back from the edge of panic, force words out that sounded normal. Ms. Washington, you seem distracted, Chairman Park observed, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Just tired, sir. The time difference is still affecting me. He didn't believe her, but he let it slide.
June tells me you'll be attending the gala. I trust you understand the importance of making a good impression." "Father," June said, his voice tight, "Amber doesn't need a lecture. I'm simply ensuring she understands what's expected. The shareholders will be watching. The press will be there. Any misstep reflects on our family." "I understand, sir," Amber said, meeting his gaze despite everything churning inside her. "I won't embarrass June or your family." Something flickered in Chairman Park's expression. "You have more composure than I initially gave you credit for. Perhaps my son shows better than I thought." After lunch, June drove them back to his apartment in silence. Amber stared out the window, watching the city blur past, wondering how her life had become this impossible tangle of lies and revelations. "You ready?" June asked quietly as they pulled into his building's garage. "No, but let's do it anyway." In June's living room, with the afternoon sun streaming through those massive windows, Amber dialed Leslie Morrison's number. June sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, his presence an anchor keeping her from floating away. The phone rang once, twice. "Hello?" The voice was hesitant, hopeful, terrified. "Leslie Morrison?" Amber's voice shook. My name is Amber Washington. Mrs. Song gave me your number." The sound on the other end was somewhere between a sob and a gasp. "Amber! Oh God, is it really you?" "I don't know," Amber said honestly. "Mrs. Song thinks I might be your daughter, because of the birthmark, but I can't." "The crescent moon," Leslie whispered, "on your left shoulder blade. I used to trace it with my finger when you were sleeping. I told you it was magic, that the moon would always guide you home." Amber's hand went to her shoulder, touching the mark through her shirt. How many times had she wondered about this strange little moon that had always been part of her? "Why didn't you find me?" The question came out broken. 20 years? How did you not find me?" "I never stopped looking." Leslie's voice was fierce through her tears. "I hired private investigators. I gave my DNA to every database. I went on news programs. I never gave up, Amber, not once. But whoever took you, they were good. They covered their tracks completely." "The Washingtons," Amber said, the name feeling foreign in her mouth. "They said they paid $30,000 to an adoption facilitator. They claim they didn't know." "Do you believe them?" Amber thought about her father's face when he taught her to ride a bike, patient through every fall. Her mother singing hymns while cooking Sunday dinner, pulling Amber into impromptu kitchen dances. 20 years of love that now felt tainted by its foundation. "I don't know what I believe anymore." "Then let me tell you what I believe," Leslie said, her voice steadying. "I believe that you survived something terrible. I believe that whoever raised you, they loved you, because how could they not? You are extraordinary. But Amber, you're mine. You're my daughter. And I have spent 20 years with a hole in my heart that's shaped exactly like you."
Amber broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep, a grief she didn't even know she'd been carrying. June's arm came around her shoulders, pulling her against him, and she let herself lean into his strength because she had none left of her own. "I want to meet you," Amber managed finally, "but I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be your daughter when I've been someone else's my whole life." "You don't have to be anything except yourself," Leslie said gently. "We'll figure it out together, at whatever pace you need. I've waited 20 years, Amber. I can wait as long as you need." They talked for another hour. Leslie told her about the night she was born, about holding her for the first time, about the future she'd imagined for them. Amber listened, trying to reconcile this woman's memories with the blank space in her own mind. When they finally hung up, Amber felt hollowed out, but also strangely lighter, like naming the truth had stolen its power to destroy her. "You okay?" June asked, still holding her. "No, but I will be." She pulled back to look at him. "Thank you for being here. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." His voice was quiet but certain. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being just a business arrangement, at least for me. Amber's breath caught. June? You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. He stood, putting distance between them. The gala is in 3 days. If you want to back out, I'll understand. This is too much to deal with on top of everything else. No. Amber stood too, surprised by her own certainty. I'm not backing out. I made a commitment. And honestly, pretending to be your girlfriend might be the only normal thing in my life right now. June smiled, small but genuine. There's nothing normal about any of this. Then we're perfectly matched. The next 3 days were a blur. Amber met with Leslie via video call every evening, slowly building a relationship with this woman who was both stranger and mother. She avoided her parents' increasingly desperate calls, not ready to forgive, but not quite ready to condemn either. And she spent her days with June, learning to read his silences, to anticipate his anxieties, to make him laugh at the most unexpected moments. By the time the gala arrived, something had shifted between them. The touches that were supposed to be for show lingered too long. The glances held weight they hadn't before. The space between them felt charged with possibility. You look beautiful, June said when she emerged in the gown his assistant had selected, a deep emerald that made her skin glow. You don't look terrible yourself. Amber adjusted his tie, her fingers brushing his collar. Ready to convince 700 people we're madly in love? About that. June caught her hand, his expression serious. What if we weren't pretending? Amber's heart stopped. What? I know the timing is terrible. I know you're dealing with more than anyone should have to handle. But Amber, these past few days... He took a breath. I haven't had to pretend, not once. Every moment with you has been real. June, we barely know each other. I know you stress bake at 2 a.m. I know you talk to yourself when you're nervous. I know that you're brave enough to face truths that would destroy most people. I know that somewhere between the airport and right now, you became the most important person in my life. He lifted her hand to his lips. Tell me I'm alone in this. Tell me you feel it too. I wanted to lie, wanted to protect myself from one more complicated truth. But looking at June, at the vulnerability in his eyes, the hope and fear warring on his face, she couldn't. You're not alone, she whispered. I feel it too. I'm terrified by it, but I feel it. June's smile was like sunrise. Then let's be terrified together. At the gala, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, Amber and June moved through the crowd like they'd been doing this for years. But now every touch was real. Every glance held meaning. When June introduced her to shareholders, when he kept his hand on the small of her back, when he looked at her like she was the only person in the room, it wasn't performance, it was truth. Chairman Park watched them all night, his expression unreadable. Finally, as the evening wound down, he approached them. Miss Washington, a word. June tensed beside her, but Amber squeezed his hand. Of course, sir. They stepped onto a balcony overlooking the glittering city. Chairman Park was silent for a long moment, his gaze on the skyline. My wife died when June was 12, he said finally. She was the only person who ever challenged me, who told me when I was wrong, who made me want to be better. He turned to face Amber. June looks at you the way I looked at her, like you're both the question and the answer. Sir, I investigated you, Miss Washington. I know about your family situation, about the Morrison case, about everything you're currently dealing with. He held up a hand when she started to speak. I'm not judging. I'm simply stating facts. And the fact is, despite everything happening in your life, you showed up tonight. You stood beside my son. You didn't use his family's resources to solve your problems or exploit his position. He paused. That takes character. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. If you hurt my son, there isn't a corner of this earth where you can hide from me. Am I understood? Despite everything, Amber smiled. Perfectly, sir. But for the record, if he hurts me, he'll have to deal with 2 mothers and a very determined housekeeper. I think I'm covered.
Chairman Park actually laughed. I think you might be good for him after all. 6 months later, Amber stood in Baltimore, in a restaurant she'd chosen specifically because it was neutral ground. Leslie Morrison sat across from her. David and Patricia Washington sat to her right. Mrs. Song sat beside Leslie, a bridge between worlds. "Thank you all for coming," Amber said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I know this is awkward, impossible even, but we need to figure out how to move forward." "Amber, baby," her father, David, started. "Let me finish, please." She took a breath. "I spent months trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be now, whose daughter I am, whose story I belong to, and I realized I was asking the wrong question. I'm not supposed to be anyone except who I choose to be." She looked at Patricia and David. "You raised me. You loved me. You also made a terrible choice that hurt someone else deeply. Those things are all true at the same time. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I also can't erase 20 years of love." Then to Leslie, "You gave birth to me. You never stopped fighting for me. You deserve to know me, to be part of my life. But we're strangers building a relationship from scratch, and that's okay. We don't have to rush it." "So, what are you saying?" Leslie asked softly. "I'm saying I have 2 mothers, and somehow we're all going to figure out how to be a family. A weird, complicated, non-traditional family, but a family." The dinner that followed wasn't easy. There were tears, difficult truths, and moments when Amber thought the whole thing might collapse. But it didn't. Slowly, painfully, they began to build something new. June arrived as dinner was ending, sliding into the seat beside Amber and taking her hand. "How'd it go?" he murmured. "Messy, but good." She smiled at him. "Thank you for waiting. I'll wait as long as you need." A year after climbing into the wrong car at JFK, Amber Washington stood in June's Tribeca apartment, their apartment now, and looked at her reflection. Her master's degree hung on the wall. Photographs showed her with both sets of parents, with Mrs. Song, with June's father, who'd become an unlikely ally. June came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Regret getting in my car that day?" Amber thought about everything that had happened, the lies uncovered, the truths faced, the family rebuilt from broken pieces, the love she'd found when she wasn't looking for it. "Not even a little bit," she said, turning in his arms. "Best wrong car I ever hijacked." As June kissed her, Amber thought about the crescent moon on her shoulder blade, the mark that had led her home, not to one place, but to a constellation of people who loved her. Her life hadn't turned out anything like she'd planned, but somehow it had turned out exactly right.